Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to this week's edition of Sisters Corner. I'm here today with Sharina Sati, who's a local poet, an inspirational local poet, should I say, who's been sharing her beautiful poetry and also her personal journey. So welcome back again, Sharina, and thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
Hope the show's been okay for you so far.
Been amazing, yeah.
Yeah, your poetry is amazing, and I was kind of losing myself and forgetting my role as hostess on this show to, ask you some key questions. So we've so far talked about your early childhood, what poetry means to you, what some of your, personal life influences have been, and then we got as far as sort of your teenage years where you weren't in school.
Yeah.
And you're clearly, like I said earlier, by the grace of God, a very put together young woman now. And I don't mean that in terms of how you look and in terms of, how strong, clearly you are a strong woman. So how did you make that transition from quite a troubled childhood, quite a troubled family? What brought you, to where you are this day?
One person, and well, two people actually, if I can call a person. So one would be my husband, and the next would be God. My faith and my husband, I call him my knight in shining armour, because if it wasn't for him taking me out of that troubled environment, I don't believe that I would be as stable as I am today.
Mm-hmm. So do you just want to explain for our viewers that your religious background, if you like?
Yeah.
So
I was baptised as a child, as a baby. I went to a Catholic school. My other background, my father's Hindu, so I've been around a lot of religions and I've had strong faith in God all my life. But I never felt like I actually fitted in somewhere, so I've always had this feeling of where do I fit in? And when I met my husband, I was obviously very troubled at the time, and he took me away from where I live right now, when I lived growing up. And from then, he started reading to me about stories from the Holy Quran, and he started just telling me things, and certain things just clicked. And at that time, I didn't feel like I belonged. And when he was reading, and it was a long time for me the transition took a long time. It took over 10 years before I reverted to being a Muslim. And through then, obviously my faith was strong, and I just felt like, for the first time, I actually felt like I belonged somewhere. Being a Muslim, being around other Muslims, on Eid and certain, I just felt like that I'd been accepted somewhere for me.
MashaAllah, that is amazing. And, like you were saying, it took 10 years, but that's the thing, when the message comes to you, it can be instant, it can take a long time, but, alhamdulillah, what a blessing.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you talk about belonging and finding yourself, because I suppose that sense of community and family is really important in Islam. It is obviously in other world faiths as well. Yeah. I just think it's amazing. And like you say, you haven't looked back.
No.
And then, it's lovely you describe your husband as your knight in shining armour, because like you say, I genuinely believe Allah, puts people in people's path for a reason, that we don't accidentally wander into each other's, orbits. There is a reason for that. And alhamdulillah, many years later, you're still together and you've got a couple of children now?
Yeah, we've been together nearly, I think it's 18 years. Oh. And we've got 3 children, so we've stuck together.
Oh, fantastic. Yeah. And how was your reversion received in your then friends and family, Or?
Not very well, because obviously my family, they didn't, back then, you see, me and my husband, we wasn't really seen as, we shouldn't be together kind of thing, because I'm different.
Your relationship wasn't approved of at the time.
Yeah. By both sides. So we struggled then to stay together, because nobody wanted us to be together. And but we fought through it, and I believe with God on our side, we did it. And I think having our faith and knowing that we're not bad people, we just love each other, we want to be together, we want to stay together. and we are, and you know, 18 years on, you know, we're still here and we're still strong.
Yeah, mashallah, that's fantastic. And is that something, I mean, obviously it's a source of inner strength, and you know, that beauty of finding, you know, the, I don't even know how to describe it, because I've got like shivers, you know, that, because like I said, God blesses all of us in different ways, and that he would, you know, answer possibly some of your prayers through your husband, because that's something we don't always realise.
No.
I have this story where, you know, we think we help other people.
Yeah.
So, you know, we think, oh, look, so-and-so's ill, I'll go and take them a drink or whatever it is. Actually, that's God's will, isn't it? It's God's will enacted through us. And when I realised that, I remember I was stood at someone's door. Bizarrely, I had taken her a pineapple. Long story, I won't go into it now necessarily. But as soon as I turned up with this pineapple, it was during fasting, and it was just after iftar. And she said, oh my goodness, you brought me a pineapple. I've been so wanting a pineapple. I don't know how you always know. These were her words. I don't know how you always know, but you always know what I need and you always bring it. And I stopped dead, and I still remember exactly how I stopped, because I stopped dead in the doorway, and I thought, of course I don't know what you need. I didn't say that to her, but in my head I was thinking, and then honestly the penny dropped, because I don't know, but she's a really pure soul, you know. She's an older lady and a sister-in-law of mine, really dear to me, right? But like I said, she's a really pure soul. Who knows what the divine interventions and connections are? Because why else do I randomly turn up on a day where she apparently is craving pineapple? There's no way on God's green earth that I can work out someone wants a pineapple. And I think that's why I genuinely believe that we are put into other people's paths for a reason. She fulfills a role in mine, and vice versa, and you with your husband. And it's interesting, because we just talked, you just mentioned there that your relationship wasn't approved of. And you know, if you're young as well, lots of families will have a say, usually out of a good place, because they think you're too young or you're too inexperienced to decide who your life partner is. But again, if it's God's will, like you say, it does stand the test of time. And I suppose, you know, us as society, us as family, we have to find a way to have those discussions with our children in a way that doesn't harm anybody, but help them make informed choices. And times are changing, and you know, people are making different choices in different ways, and we've just got to navigate that together.
Sometimes it's just about putting your trust in your children and knowing that, because I can understand it can be difficult for parents. Obviously, like you said, we was young, I was only 16, but it's like now both our parents on both sides, you know, it's just like a nice connected family. It's just beautiful, everything's, you know, it's lovely. So sometimes, they just got to put the trust in us a little bit more.
Sounds like a proper, you know, love story. But obviously a very real one. And it's lovely there. And if you would, it's also really beautiful to hear that you and your families have actually made up, I suppose. You know, so are you operating together now as adults, as a better family?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and that's good, and you're still in each other's lives, and you've come through that. Yeah, mashallah. And that is an inspiration as well, isn't it? Because the one thing that we also sometimes think, especially when we're younger, but to be fair, anyone does, when bad times are bad, we think they're going to last forever.
Definitely,
And it's very difficult to remember and have complete faith in you know, Allah, and recognise that He will give us ease when it's our time as well, and we've got to, sometimes we've got to earn it, sometimes we've got to ask for it, and we've got to keep asking for it, but we need to recognise things do move on, so that's, and it might take 10, 12 years.
Definitely, I think as well, you've got to remember sometimes in today's society and what's going on in the third world countries, you know, I'm always forever grateful what I have, even if sometimes I'm having a bad day and I'm like, I snap out of it, because it's like, how can I complain? You know, I have so much, and there's people in war-torn countries that have nothing, and how can I complain? So then it stops me there, and then I thank and I be grateful, and I don't ask for anything, because I feel like I can't, because I shouldn't be, because there's so much going on, and I have more blessings than most, so
I feel like that. I remember once I was driving, and it sounds like a bizarre thing. And I went on my very short journey, and I got to the other side, and I just sat in the car, and I was just struck by the privilege that I had.
Yeah.
So as a woman, you know, I was able to drive, I was able to learn to drive.
Yeah.
I'm privileged enough to have my own car,
Yeah.
nothing fancy, I must say, but that wasn't the point. The point was, actually, because I have my car, I am able to go from A to B. I can do more, I can help more, I can make more of my time.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, I'm a great time waster as well, unfortunately, but I can, you know, do a lot more because I'm in this privileged position. And it just really similarly got me thinking on that day. I was just like, oh, I was so grateful. And I wrote a little, you know, I sort of write prose as well sometimes, and I wrote a little bit piece about it. And then someone commented on it and said, oh, Marie, you make me feel so ordinary. And but the thing is, I was writing about a very ordinary thing that we take for granted. So as we know, women in Saudi Arabia have been campaigning for the right to be able to drive, and they finally got that last year. Equally, interestingly enough, more importantly, I think, women also are now lawmakers there as well, and that wasn't the case. So there's been huge changes, but these are things that are just happening for people now. And we're here in the United Kingdom in 2018, and there is an element of we shouldn't complain about anything. On the other hand, some of the changes in society have happened because someone complained, or someone held up their hand and said, hang on, what about me, or that's not acceptable. So there is an element of, it's not complaining, but recognising inequality, recognising unfairness is quite important. But you're absolutely right, because I say this to my nieces and nephews, you've got a roof over your head, you've got parents who care about you, you know, you've got food in your belly, you've got clothes on your back, you've got guaranteed an education if you don't mess it up, That's more than probably 90% of the world, you know, and it's hard to believe that we don't see ourselves as, none of us are rich in the financial sense necessarily, but in terms of those other life markers, we are truly blessed.
Definitely,
So my lovely, that feels like a time for another poem. What have you got for us?
So I've got quite a few. Thinking maybe this one, my spiritual rebirth.
Okay, that feels very poignant.
I entered the world shattering my parents' dream, for I was not born a boy. Laid bare naked in my mother's arms as she spilled tears of sadness, not joy. Defined by my gender, just an innocent child, darkness marked the day of my birth. It haunted me, was this my curse? I had no identity, I resented the skin I was born in, I mourned my own life. I grieved daily, wishing my life away, longing for normality, to sit down as a family and watch TV and play. Not having to cover my ears to the alcohol-fueled fights or the shattering of the glass windows every night. I wanted my mother to love me, see the beauty in me and no other. I wasn't enough. I couldn't stop her mental health issues or the beatings from her lover. I'd look into her eyes and I wish I could numb her pain, stop her from pouring the pills down her throat, taking her life again. I wanted to breathe without the sirens ringing in my ears, stop protecting her when the social services appear. I wanted a normal life. As I grew, I darkened too, the hermit of my home. Would my life have been any different had my father fertilised my egg, mother's egg, with only a Y chromosome? My body was an empty vessel. I died each and every day watching my life pass me by. My wings had been clipped, no one taught me how to fly. I feared life but not death. I yearned to be free. I wanted to be happy and just love me. Tired of the disease eating away at my flesh, worried I would never be free from my anxiety, until one day I planted my own seeds and I watched as their delicate petals formed in the garden I had created. Still vulnerable underneath the protective layers I had formed, yet no longer isolated or shackled to the victim of my past, I finally had an identity, a place I felt I belonged. I wasn't weak, yes I was afraid, but I had to step out of my comfort zone to remain strong. Be strong, for I am a woman of this earth, ready to shine in her light and awaken my spiritual rebirth. Thank you.
My goodness, mashallah, there's so much in that, you know. That's kind of your entire journey in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow. One thing struck me, you know, this thing that you exploring there about in gender and being in the wrong. It's so tragic, because I mean, obviously you feel it affected you, and obviously you, as a baby, you won't remember your mum crying over you, but at some point you will have imagined that that's what she did because of the treatment later on in life. But the fact that people still suffer that as well, and very blatantly, and around the countries, around the world, there's many places where girl babies are still a source of sadness, which, you know, astaghfirullah, is a terrible thing, because in Islam, girl babies are a source of joy, and in terms of the human soul, the equality between men and women, what's sinful for men is sinful for women, and it's such a sadness that it's still in this day and age. I read some statistics the other day on what do they call it now? Femicide. So, you know, the murder of women or, you know, girls, and it's ridiculously high, unbelievable in this day and age. And it just brings so much sadness when you think about it. And then, you know, in your poem you've talked about alcohol-fueled fights, so domestic abuse in the family as well. You know, people do love each other, but they just have a horrendous way of expressing it, and seriously, I think some people have no business being with anyone else. I think, obviously, me growing up as a child, my mum, I mean, I love her to pieces. She's not had a great life herself, and I'll always show her that respect, but unfortunately for me to channel my own emotions, that's the other side that comes out, because she's a big part of why I feel, growing up, why I felt the way I did. Even though I don't hate her, I still love her. But obviously, growing up as a child, we did see a lot of domestic violence, and it was surrounded by alcohol and stuff like that, and drug abuse and all that kind of nonsense. But so growing up for us, and me, especially me being a female and having 3 daughters, you know, my thing for them is to protect them. And like, I still get people saying to me stuff like, you know, do you want a boy? Do you want a son? It's like, I have 3 daughters. You know, my job now is to protect them and encourage them to grow and be strong, independent women. Not around none of that. You know, mashallah. And I think that's the point here as well. You know, respect to your mum, in as much as that was where you were as a family, and that's not where you are now, and we all come through these things. And I think sharing it shouldn't be seen as a criticism of your mum now, but actually an inspiration to other young people who may be going through something like that. And if you think about the grace of Allah here, so your mum was also dual heritage, growing up in a mixed family, and look where her life took her, you know, and like you said, there's lots of factors in that. You were also in a really difficult situation, and look, by the grace of, you know, God, where you have been, you know, guided towards. So it's, you know, it's like part 1, Shireen, and part 2 is such an inspiration to, you know, because I know, and partly because of my day role, that there's so many families who are, you know, who are suffering and struggling like this. And if you didn't share this out of respect for your mum, then in a way, you take away maybe possibly a source of strength for people, that you can overcome, you know. And if anyone is affected by all these issues, obviously do look online, or, you know, your library is a source of information. You can go to your council information websites, etc. There's the Samaritans, there's Women's Aid, so there's lots of organisations who can support with any of these issues if you are going through that. And if you really have no idea where to start, you could ring the sort of 101 police number. So if you're really struggling with something at the moment, and it does happen, there's no shame in it, unfortunately. You know, adults do things around us, and people have self-destructive behaviours. We know things are wrong, but people still do it. So thank you very much for sharing that. I genuinely believe, you know, and more power to you. We have unfortunately only got a very short time. So what next for you in the next few months?
Well, there'll be we'll be attending the UK Indie Lit Fest in Bradford. That'll be at Calasangam in July.
Yeah, that's quite a long weekend of activities, isn't it?
I'll be doing that. I'm also doing the Leeds Leader, that's in April. Basically, a poet and a composer's come together to create a song, and that'll be in Leeds. There's absolutely loads, but I'm trying to think off the top of my head.
No, that's okay. So if people are interested in Sharina's poetry, you've got 2 published books, haven't you? So can you just show us those, please? So you've got, one is Broken Chains and Testing Times, and you can get both of these on Amazon, did you say?
Yeah, Amazon, yeah.
Yeah. And just remind us of your Facebook page name again?
It's Momentous Treasures.
Right. And do you share all your poetry on there, or just some? And
I do, yeah, quite a lot of it's on there. I'm writing a book at the moment, but it's taking a bit more time, but none of them poems on there. That's going to be like a unique one with undercover poems. Yeah. And sorry, I just got distracted there for a second. So if people want to get in touch with you, because the other thing you do is run workshops and things in schools, don't you? Yeah, I do.
So if people wanted to get in touch with you, is your Facebook page the best way to do it?
It is, yeah. It's got all my details on there.
Yeah. Okay, so if you do want to talk to Sharina about her poetry or doing workshops or anything, that's the best way to do it. So we've only got a few minutes left. Is there would you like to read another short poem before we finish?
Yeah.
We've got about a minute and a half.
I'll quickly get one there.
Yeah, a couple of minutes. And viewers, just in case we don't have a chance to say goodbye, inshallah I'll see you next time, and please do go and look up Sharina and her work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Keep smiling. The rain starts to fall and the clouds turn grey. This won't change how I feel today. This smile I've earned and I feel blessed. No matter how many times I'm put to the test, I will jump over rocks and swim through the tide. No matter how far I'm pushed, this great happiness won't leave my side. I am the one to stay quiet and always be low key, always keeping my true feelings hidden, but I just yearn to be free. I keep true and I keep peace. It goes unnoticed as if I'm the deceased, like a blank picture on the wall that no one notices at all. Yet this smile is on my face and I won't let it leave, because true happiness comes from within if only you believe. I'm blessed and so grateful for every breath that I take. This heart is full of love that is real, it's not fake. These days it's hard to find who you can trust. Just as a diamond stands before you, it can turn to dust. Life doesn't always give you the great hand, but I strive forward and make my stand. For today this smile is here to cherish, and it will last a lifetime and never perish. Test me all you want and I will beat your score, because this is my house and you are standing outside my door. This smile is mine and it's here to last. I welcome the future and forget the past. Positivity is the answer and happiness is the key. For I write my future. Yes, that's me. Thank you.
Oh, mashallah, that's beautiful. And to be fair to say, our futures, obviously, because we are people of faith, you know, we do believe in God's hand in that. But I love that, you know, the difference where in the previous poem you were saying you feared life but welcomed death. And in this one where, you know, it's just so much more uplifting and positive, and you're clearly, you know, in a different place.
Definitely.
And a really positive, healthy space. And long may that be the case for you, mate. You know, God bless you and your family. And thank you so much for your time. I look forward to reading more of your poetry offline. And inshallah, that's all we've got time for this time, viewers. So thank you very much. Thank you again.
Thank you for having me.
And assalamu alaikum.